Hello! So it's that time again when it is time to do the first half of my June wrap up. I can't frankly believe that it's this time already. I feel like I say this every month, but every month it just seems to come around faster. Anyway, alas, 'tis halfway through June, so it is time to wrap up what I've been reading recently. Firstly, I have to admit that I made a mistake in my last audiobook wrap up. I completely missed off one of the audiobooks that I really enjoyed last month, so I'm going to add that one on here because I want to speak about it because it's a book that I really enjoyed. I suppose this is the problem with not having physical copies, it just won't clean out of my mind. If you want to know the other audiobooks I listened to last month, I will link that wrap up down below, but as I say, I forgot this one. And that is The Last Family in England by Matt Haig. Now, I've been wanting to read some of Matt Haig's work ever since listening to his non-fiction book, Reasons to Stay Alive, at the start of the year. Matt Haig himself narrates it, and I really enjoyed that. And I actually really enjoyed Matt Haig's narration style, so it's quite a shame that he doesn't narrate his audiobooks himself, but he doesn't, and annoyingly I forgot to look up the name of the guy who does narrate them, although it's the same person for all of Matt Haig's fictions. I will find out and put it around here somewhere. So he narrated this one and I really enjoyed his narration as well, so that was fine. Basically, this is a book which is from the perspective of a family's dog, and he is a Labrador, and in this world there is something called a Labrador code, which basically means that Labradors of families are sent on a mission effectively to keep the family safe at all costs. You know, loyalty, and they have to always look out for the family. And we start off learning that this dog has disobeyed that code, and he is in the vets because of it, and he is basically telling the other dogs in the vet surgery why he disobeyed the code. Now, if you had told me, and this was on Daily Deals, I just bought it seeing that it was Matt Haig. I didn't read the blurb or anything, so I didn't know it was a book written from the perspective of a dog. If you had told me that, I probably wouldn't have given this a go, because generally I think animal narration is a risky thing, and it can be done really badly, and it can be quite hard to make it natural. Matt Haig does this so well. It doesn't feel like you're being patronised. It doesn't fall into the typical tropes that sometimes books like this do fall into, where it's like bone, bone, woof, woof, and dogs are sort of given this quite simplistic, flitty voice. It's not like that at all. The voice is so strong and so hilarious, and as the story unravels, it's just laugh out loud funny and yet heartwarming at the same time. It deals with some really big issues such as drug use, suicide, affairs, and this dog is trying to just hold this family together, and obviously things go a little bit awry. The only thing I would say about this, and something that a lot of people mentioned in their reviews on Goodreads, is that it kind of, without spoiling anything, it kind of writes itself into a corner. So the way that it starts, where he is in this situation and he is telling the other dogs his story, and the rest of the book is the story that he's telling, and then obviously we have to come back to what was happening at the start, and you kind of expect that something's going to intervene or change the course of the book that you've been on so far, and it doesn't. And the ending kind of, I think it didn't add anything. If anything, it kind of made the rest of the book seem a little bit less impactful, because it kind of seemed a little bit like, what was the point in all that? But I still really enjoyed this. I think the ending, as I say, was not perfect. It could have been different, but then at the same time, you know, I probably would have criticised it if there was this sudden thing that made the inevitable not happen. So it kind of, in that way, I think Matt Haig did write himself into a corner in that respect. But either way, I would highly recommend this. I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it reading it, because as I say, dog voices are quite difficult, but I definitely would recommend the listening experience. And yeah, I just wanted to give that one a shout out because I didn't in my previous audiobook wrap up. So then we're on to the physical books that I actually read in the first half of June. Firstly, we had The Robber Bride by Margaret Atwood. I have read a few Margaret Atwoods in my time. I think Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood was probably the first proper literary fiction book that I read when I was about 18. And it was a different experience because Margaret Atwood is very poetic with language. She writes very well. But what I would say about Margaret Atwood, and something that I find with all of the Margaret Atwoods that I have read, is that she's quite heavy going. Her books are not plot heavy, which I don't mind, but not only are they not plot heavy, but her writing can be very dense. So I've had this on my shelf for a while and I was kind of hesitant about picking it up, but I thought it was about time I did. So this is about basically 3 friends, and their friend Xenia has died and they went to her funeral. Then something strange happens and they all start seeing her around. And obviously at first they think they're just hallucinating, but because all 3 of the friends are seeing her, they start thinking that something's going on. And I kind of thought that this was going to be a strange ghosty story, which is partly why I didn't pick it up, and it's not that. I won't ruin what's actually going on with Xenia being around, but basically her presence ignites these memories in these friends, and they all sort of separately, we get separate sections where we learn about what Xenia was to them, what she did to them, and also how they react to her being back. Basically Xenia is one of those women who is quite difficult for them to like, you know, even though they are referred to as her friends and they do consider themselves friends. She has kind of crossed them in a variety of different ways. She's a woman who lies a lot. All of them got different backstories about her life. They don't even know if her name is her real name. And she has a habit of stealing her friends' men, and, you know, generally not treating people very nicely. But we get this picture of her through the stories, and it was good. It was really well written, and to be fair, for the first sort of half of this I was thinking that it was probably my favourite Margaret Atwood. I would actually say that it did get quite slow again towards the middle slash end, but I really enjoyed this. I think if you liked Cat's Eye, this is one to go to next, because it kind of looks at the same themes of the difficulties in female friendship and the intricacies and the kind of cattiness that is hidden underneath a lot of female friendships. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars for me. As I say, it did get a bit slow, and I do just find Margaret Atwood quite dense. It did just drag a little bit for me at the end. Then I read The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There. I read The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I want to say 3 years ago. I think it was only 3 or so. And really thoroughly enjoyed it, but I just haven't ever gotten around to buying this one. I think the trouble is I always kind of look out for this in bookshops, but I find that the Fairyland series are quite missing from a lot of bookshops. Generally I can only find the latest release of the series. I certainly can't find all of them, so I ordered this online eventually a few months ago and picked it up because I'm currently in the throes of editing my own children's novel, and I kind of want it to be a lot like this. So I adore this book. I can't say much. Basically these stories follow a girl called September. In the first one she gets whisked off to Fairyland and not all is well in Fairyland, and she kind of in a kind of Alice in Wonderland-esque way, she has to overcome the evil and to save Fairyland, and this is when she goes back and realises that perhaps there are still some problems that need addressing. I think that's all I'm going to say. But what I love about this is that I think there is as much for adults in this book as there is for children. In fact, I think I enjoy this more as an adult than I would if I was reading it as a child, because there is just so much beauty in here. So I think the best way to explain it is to read you a little bit. So this is the very first page. Once upon a time, a girl named September had a secret. Now, secrets are delicate things. They can fill you up with sweetness and leave you like a cat who has found a particularly fat sparrow to eat and did not get clawed or bitten, even once while she was about it. But they can also get stuck inside you and very slowly boil up your bones for their bitter soup. Then the secret has you, not the other way around. So we may be very glad that September had the better of her secret and carried it with her like a pair of rich gloves which, when she was cold, she would take out and slip on to remember the warmth of days gone by. It's just so beautiful. I would highly recommend it. It was thoroughly enjoyable, and I can't really say more than that. I adore these and I can't wait to get to the next one. Hopefully it'll be a bit sooner than it was for that one. Then I finished the month The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and as you can see it's pretty thick. So I took this to Cornwall with me, and I did manage to read it in a week, which was quite impressive really considering the size of it. On the one hand, I really enjoyed it and I think it makes the perfect holiday read. It really did feel like a book that I couldn't wait to delve into. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and actually when I was on the drive home, which was about 3 hours, I really got stuck into this. I thoroughly enjoyed that experience because it was so immersive, and it was the first time in a long time that I've been able to just read a book for that long without needing to do something else, because I find recently my reading has been quite flitty, so this kind of solved that problem for me. But at the same time, I think this kind of confirmed why I don't like fantasy. Generally, I will not pick up a fantasy book or a long fantasy series because not only do I not like fantasy, but I don't like series. And this book kind of gave voice to the reasoning for both of those things. So firstly, I would say that long fantasy books, I find, because length is kind of a trope of the genre in a way, I find that they kind of beat around the bush a lot, which is not necessarily something that I enjoy in my fiction. I'm used to the idea of using as little words as possible, you know, getting to the point as concisely as you can. And I think fantasy books in their very genre do not do that. They very much go around the bushes, and I can understand that that's because I think a lot of people who read fantasy want that immersive experience. They want to get into the world rather than just a story. I get that, and also the reason that I don't enjoy series is because I think I don't really want to waste time on a book that doesn't wrap itself up. I suppose this book also falls into that, but that said, as I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it and I'm really looking forward to getting to the next one. So it's kind of a game of two halves for me, really. So this is about a man called Cove, I think. I might be saying that completely wrong, but I was saying it Cove in my head, so that's what I'm going to call him. And in this world, there are a lot of rumours about this man and what he can do and who he is. And the nature of this book is that he is talking to a chronicler who is writing down his story, and he's basically finally putting some of those myths to rest and just telling his life story. So we follow him through most of his university years here, and then presumably the next book goes on to his later life, and I did enjoy it, as I say. I think this is probably very much one of those books that would appeal to readers of Harry Potter, purely because the university setting is really quite comforting, and he has his two best friends. It kind of just chronicles a young man who's studying kind of magical, deep, dark things. A university setting. There were some tangents in here that I think lost me a little bit. I really enjoyed the sort of central chunk of this, where we're just following his quest in the university, and the trials and tribulations that he has, because he's not like the other people there. The other people are rich and he is not. He's also younger than the others because he's a very gifted student. They've let him in early. So he has quite a few issues with the university, and I really enjoyed that. But the parts at the beginning and also the ending really lost me a little bit. There's a point where he goes off on a quest from the university for a few days, and I found that bit quite boring, and I don't necessarily know that it added anything for me, but I'm willing to hold my hands up and say that is solely my personal taste. The fact that I did enjoy it and I am willing to get to the next one is probably testament to the fact that it is a quite good fantasy, because, as I say, most of the time I just won't bother. Yeah, it's interesting. I realise as well that I haven't really told you about the world, so effectively this is a world in which people can know the true name of things and basically command the elements, I suppose. When you know the true name of the wind, for example, name of the wind, which is sort of the main quest for this book, you can then command the wind, and Quoth is basically on a quest to learn the true name of things. Yeah, it left me a bit underwhelmed, but as I say, it was fine. I enjoyed it and I will be reading the next one. So that is everything. Please let me know down below what you've been reading in the first half of this month, and I will see you next time. Bye!